welcome to the Captain's Log, Stardate 6/21/2024. I'm your host, Danjamin. A little bit of a different format today. We are skipping the crew because we have some interesting developments. We have another developer stream today. We're going to do something of a little bit of a response video today. So at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, Tilting Point Joe and Ben joined us with a much improved stream illustrating the Voyage feature. We got to see some active gameplay. I'm going to share that with you now. I'm going to be pausing the video, giving my thoughts, and kind of condensing things for you. The entire stream lasted a little under 50 minutes. I'm going to try to deliver this to you in as condensed a way as I can and give you the important information. Before we begin, just a few notes. So check out my 2 prior videos on Voyage Event strategy. They actually came out largely untouched. Most of what we had guessed based on available information, you'll see to kind of work out to be true. There are a few tweaks that we'll give you as we go along here. And I'm also going to let Joe open up with a little bit of a description in his words about what this event brings to the table. So let's listen to Joe here.
Voyage Event feature will unlock an additional voyage specific to the event during its event or event phase. So this will allow for periods of time for that further voyage investment that we sort of just discussed. And then for the crew valuation, we're looking to make an event type that drives value for a different type of crew, which you'll see a little bit. And then strategic gameplay, the more interactive and gameplay focused, looking to replace the existing dilemma mechanic with something that's a bit more strategic. We're going to take a quick look at the current state of this mechanic. That's what we're looking at today, is this strategic component. And just for the caveats, this is still in a very...
Before we get into that, he's got some important things that I want to share with you, what he calls caveats, but we're going to review what he said here. So this unlocks a second voyage. You are going to have your existing voyage. You can keep that running if you want to, but during this weekend event, there will be 4 days where you can launch a second voyage. Different ship, 12 different crew. Remember, crew that are on voyages are locked. This is no exception. So it'll be roughly similar to the strain on your crew that you see during a faction event. Like right now we're in a faction hybrid. So in addition, if you're running voyages, and then you also have to choose 12 or 13 or more crew to also staff your shuttles, that's similar to what we're going to see for this type of event. He mentioned a different type of crew will be valuable here. We knew this coming in, and it becomes much more clear on this exactly the value of these crew that have strong proficiencies and also some voyage power. And then finally, the more strategic active gameplay. We'll actually get a good solid look at it. We're gonna let things play out. I'll show you an entire what they call an encounter. It's the new term for what the dilemmas were for a normal voyage. These Voyage Event voyages are going to have encounters. Let's listen to Joe's caveats though before we continue.
Early state of development, the UI is incomplete, the balance is incomplete, and some facets of this particular mechanic are incomplete. However, we believe it's representative of the type of gameplay we're aiming for in this feature. Excited to show you. And so let's get into it.
So some of the things that are incomplete that we'll see, the victory points are undefined. So as we go through, we're going to want to kind of know how easy it'll be to hit our thresholds. Now, the developers do go on later to reassure us that we may hit our threshold. The average player will be able to hit their thresholds without having to pay dilithium. That's their goal, is to make it accessible. Otherwise, people wouldn't play the event. So that's reassuring, but still there's a huge burden on getting the right crew just to be able to staff your voyage. And we'll go on to see later that there's a lot of tweaking that needs to be done to the numbers that we're seeing in order to make that happen.
Awesome. So for this run, for an example case, I went ahead and I selected basically the top crew I had for each of the seats here.
Mitchell, watch. For those of you with good eyesight. Also, seeing Mambo Picard, so really timely offering we had on the Picard Day celebration. There's a few other crew you'll see that are familiar from our last cast where we went out and called out the good crew for Portal, for Non-Portal, and for Honorable Mention. You'll see a few featured here. Obviously, Gary Seven's on the roster. He gets a lot of use. Spoiler alert.
So now that I filled all of those out,
Tactical
I'll go ahead
Stamets,
and
Dexa.
engage.
Yeah, and just we'll probably pop in and out of this a few times.
So I'm going to fast forward here to the 1.5-minute mark, which is where the first dilemma pops up, and then it leads right into the feature.
The way they are now, Great. So I just hit my encounter here. As you can see, I have a bunch of crew, similar to how we select for Gauntlet, a bunch of crew I can select on the left here. And then instead of just one contest for Gauntlet, I have a few. I have a row here. And you can see all the different featured skills for each of these contests and the featured traits as well.
So there's a battery. There is literally a gauntlet that we have to go through of skill checks. Not a good looking assortment here. This is tough, especially the very first one here. A med sec, that is a tough skill pair, no matter who you bring, and really not one that's really known in among Gauntlet crew. This is going to be difficult. We're starting out also with some relatively high skill checks here. 350 max roll that we're facing for this generic Romulan here. And then it doesn't get easier from here. We do have one little bit of an easier single psi skill check next. Then it goes right on into a med again, and then finishing up with a sec eng. So I asked this question because this seemed a little crazy to me. I just, the developers are aware of the disparity in how skills are represented in the game, and that has been borne out in continuum missions where we know that certain nodes show up less frequently than others, particularly the med nodes show up far less frequently, and that's a reflection of their representation in the game. There are just that many fewer primary med crew in the game. So they've designed the continuum mission function to have fewer med nodes show up, much to the chagrin of people trying to earn the qubits off of those med nodes just to be able to equip their crew. It's kind of shot them in the foot there, but I think it's the right move to represent skills proportionately to how they appear in the game, and that is not what's happening here. So I did raise the question, and Joe responded that right now, with the balancing in its current state, all the skills and skill pairs are roughly equally represented. I think he's aware there are some opportunities, and seeing Ben struggle with, and I'm not going to show you the whole stream, but seeing him struggle through some of the later skill checks here, some of them are just unfair. And I think it's clear as they work their way through, they'll finally understand that there needs to be a little bit of a different representation. The other thing too, right on the screen here, we can even see in this very first skill check, we have a security that is equivalent to the medical skill check here. Should not be the case. Med proficiencies and med skills tend to clock in hundreds of points lower than security, than command, than diplomacy. There needs to be a little bit of a variance, a little bit of scaling done. So we'll hope that when they do their balance pass later on in the development cycle, that they really do attend to that.
So I'm going to go ahead, Joe, and I'm just going to try to win this contest. Although the skill set is kind of difficult for me, actually. I don't know. I'm going to have to use Mr. 7 here and hopefully get a crit or two.
It's RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG. If you're playing these Voyage events, you can expect that you are going to get not only bad crits sometimes, you're also going to get bad skill pairs that maybe you're not prepared for, and you're going to get bad encounters altogether with just awful skill checks consequently. It's really this is what's going to wash out players, and I guess that leaves this sort of event wide open. If you've done a decent amount of preparation that you can control for a lot of contingencies, it'll take you a little bit farther than the competition, but maybe not reliably so. There's so much that goes into the die rolls here for pretty much every aspect of this, right down to the voyage seeding, the antimatter seeding. There's going to be some random element to that as well. I think that the players that play this consistently and in large numbers, completing a whole lot of these dilemma pit stops, these encounters, may have a leg up on the people that just rely on one good strong voyage. We'll see.
I might end up losing this one. Nope. Got it.
Yeah.
Great. So now that I won this one, you can see I get a nice little chunk of victory points there. But also, I'm getting a bonus for some extra, for some skills that will give me kind of buff skills for the remainder of this encounter. So 7 had 3 skills. I really only used one of them for that contest. So the other 2 that were not used during that contest, a percentage of the min and max proficiency end up getting cycled and buff your roster for the remainder of that encounter. But that only occurs when you win.
I'm gonna wait till he goes back to
Yes,
the
that's going to
screen.
be
Okay, so what he said here is real important, and this is where the strategic element comes in. Where if you have, and so he used Gary 7. Gary 7 has only the security and that security med. Without, he could have certainly rolled higher by bringing a crew that had med in, but he knew he didn't need to. Gary Seven extremely strong and was able to handle the whole battle on its own. And now we're seeing on screen here we have some color changes. So Amelia Earhart has her command stat now buffed. Data has his science stat buffed. It's also eliminated because that's the featured skill for this next battle here against against Klingon female checking her iPhone, I guess is her official title. Anyways, the fact is that you can accumulate these bonuses also throughout longer and longer encounters, and the encounters do get longer from here. We'll see as we go through the video here. They'll reach 5 and even 6 nodes long. So the longer the encounter, the more of a strain it will be on your voyage crew. With only 12 to choose from, there'll be that many fewer by the time that you get to the end to draw on, but also that many more bonuses you'll be able to earn if you've strategically played not only with the current node that's right in front of you, but also looking forward. The other thing we'll notice on this screen here too is that there is a straight line increase. This Klingon is exactly 20 points of proficiency higher. The bottom end has not changed, so the prior Klingon was 100 to 350. And that trend continues, at least in its current balance. It looks like we could expect straight line increases. So even though it looks like we may not be able to kind of see exactly who we're fighting, we can anticipate the skill checks that we'll need to tackle later on.
a core strategy for completing the more difficult encounters that you're going to see deeper into your voyages.
Yep. So I'll just run through. Oh, I just barely won that one. I'll run through the rest of this one, and then we'll do a quick reset, and then we'll try to go through. So let's see. I'm on a medical node now.
We're getting traits featured for each of these battles. Hero Gambler Klingon is the featured traits here. I'm not sure if that's reflecting. I don't think the crew that Ben is choosing here are actually matching so far. At least I haven't seen one. That may be something that's added later, but we don't know what the skill buff will be if you choose a matching skill. It is mentioned later on that there will be crew or personas that get a bonus during the event, and then also certain key traits, just like any faction, any galaxy event, even skirmish. And so for these, we don't know what the size of the bonus will be. For Galaxy, it's much larger. It's like a 10x bonus, much less. I think it's 3x for faction if you get an event crew.
I think I can win this one too. And so kind of playing through it for the first time, I'm just choosing kind of like the best crew that I have.
A big variance on those bonuses. I'm going to rewind just a little bit here. So on the very first battle, Ben received a reward of over 350 maximum roll proficiency points on one of the skills. Here we're seeing much less. And so it looks like there is certainly a range, and again, it looks like maybe it's just a random distribution within that range what the bonus you get will be. So even though you may roll and receive a bonus on these skills, it may not be enough to get you over the hump if you're just unlucky. So yet another element of RNG is the bonuses that you're awarded here upon winning.
I'm just choosing kind of like the best crew that I have, and I do, not really thinking too much about it, but the kind of inner strategy of this is with these encounters, you want to be using crew that are going to help you and boost your skills for the later feature skills during that encounter. So okay, just finished that. Let me just go ahead and recall.
So yeah, there's our first drop. So there's some currency that will drop. The diminished rewards were called out. The voyage is the second voyage that you run. The reward really is the threshold rewards. It's the competition. It's getting your final rewards for placement. But along the way, it looks like these voyages, what we see throughout the video, they do drop trainers, credits. We've seen a couple of chronotons drop. We have not seen components, and they also specifically said there won't be any voyage exclusive begolds. So it looks like almost everything has been stripped out except for just the straight currency, which I'm fine with. It may not be as rewarding as skirmishes with the currency drops, and there may be honor in there too, who knows, but At least it's something. So it looks like this is going to be a little bit of a currency positive event, which is great.
Real quick, and we'll run that.
And here again, he's paying dilithium to recall. They did mention on the stream last Friday that the recollection on the voyage events would be free and instantaneous. I believe they go on to mention later on too that if you extend your voyage, you can actually use dilithium, or you can use voyage refresh tokens. So for any of you who have been saving your voyage tokens since they announced that voyage would be the next event type, your hoarding has been rewarded, that you may actually be able to use them.
This again. What kind of strategy should I go for this time, Joe? With
So there, I'm going to let them kind of staff out their crew and get into their next event here, and just kind of briefly show you the next loadout here. So there's their first encounter. It actually looks a little bit easier. So RNG is in their favor this time with just 3 single skill checks and then a command eng, which is really not difficult at all. Falls in line with a lot of existing crew. Here they're going up against the Romulans, and again they start the exact same place. 100 to 350 is exactly where the last voyage started. We'll jump on through to the end here, and so we have a maximum of 410. So if we start at 350, we add 20 each node. That brings us to 410. So it seems pretty bankable here. So here's our second dilemma, and so we've got another smattering of these skills. Actually, don't look too bad. The command sec is fine. Just the final node here with another med sec check. It's just awful. This one's starting a little higher, so we have 10 points added to both the minimum and maximum for this second in the series of encounters. So we'll see if that bears out as we go all the way through here. Too far. Yep, it does. So let's see if Ben defeats this final
several
opponent.
hours into the event, after you've cleared through more of the basic ones. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a challenge.
Nope, no good. Poor Gary.
Right, so, and just a reminder too, when you lose a contest, you're not getting that that kind of bonus, that bigger drop of victory points as well.
Yeah, so he not only lost his victory points on that, but he also lost his multiplier. So going into the next encounter, it appears you can actually carry over your multiplier between encounters. All your crew refresh, but you still also keep your multiplier. So you can actually keep it rolling as you go if you planned well and you have luck on your side. Let's look at the final one that they showcase here.
To still run your main.
So here we go. This is their kind of their ultimate. The goal here is to reach an encounter that has 6 nodes on it. Yeah, look at the skill assortment here. That's another thing I have trouble with. So in addition to the skills not being scaled to the relative power of the skill, so med proficiencies being held to the same scaling as sec proficiencies. Look at this here. We have an array. We have this gauntlet that we're proceeding through of 6 different nodes. And of those, 4 different security checks, a single one, and then 3 other combined checks. If I'm rolling into Voyage and I'm doing it smart, I'm doing it where I get all those different skill pairs covered, and that means that I'm not going to have as many security primary crew as they're asking for here. It's just too many. Having 4 different checks out of 6 be security, you're going to run out of powerful security crew by the time you get to the end here. And even with those bonuses. How are you going to even get a security bonus if the node that you're solving is a security node? So what they're saying is the strategic gameplay here is that, you want to make sure you get your security bonuses for the last node, but then we're being asked to run security crew 3 times before. And if they've used that skill, then they won't actually get it. So I'm going to have to beat the second node with a science-only crew. I'm going to have to beat the 5th node, presumably, with a diplomacy-only crew. And the reason why is, look at this last crew. We're going to fast forward to the very last node. And I'm going to have them introduce this to you here.
Wow, 4 out of 6 crits. Love to see it. Okay, now on the last
node,
that's a
4-shift rotation for Jellicoe there.
And we got a board queen.
Yep. So there will be boss encounters where the final contest of the encounter will be more difficult. It will be this is where we're introducing a little bit of crit chance on the enemies. If you've noticed to this point, we've set most of the crit to 0. I'm not sure if that will scale in difficulty later. However, the boss is supposed to be representing, like this is a very difficult encounter. So at the end, you'll have to sort of scale up your buffs as you're sort of proceeding through the system, and hopefully be able to hit their higher numbers or get lucky with.
So yeah, first battle where there's any sort of crit rating, all the random Joes that we've come across have just been zeros on the crits. So that's good. That's one way they have mitigated the RNG, is that you're not going to get just random awful rolls against you if everybody's set to 0. But now we've got UBQB who's going to throw them right at you, and 10% of the time she's going to wallop you. Real difficult. Gary 7 to the rescue though. MVP always comes in clutch for Ben here. Let's see if he beats her.
Yeah, in this case, I think we set ourselves up for a lot of success here. Put us in a really good spot. We almost beat Board Queen by 3,000.
So a few random notes here. Let me see if there's anything else. I think after this, it gets real weird after here. They fast forward, and then all of a sudden, one of the Klingons looks suspiciously like Mr. Spock. I don't know what's going on here, but there are a few other clarifications that Joe and Ben made during the stream here. So we had a few questions answered. So the question of how are we going to get some help? So we're a little bit concerned that the majority of the crew have really been focused on core skills, and proficiencies have been fallen to the wayside. We don't really often get very good proficiency crew. And when we do, they tend to be Gauntlet exclusive drops. We know the EVC Gorn is coming up as our next Continuum Mission Epic level gold drop. And that's going to be a Gauntlet-focused crew. Joe clarified it will likely not be strong for this format. I think they're really pushing the proficiencies and leaving the core skills in the dust. So that begs the question: how are players going to get their hands on, without having to reach into their retrievals to retrieve these crew that are only going to be optimal for the voyage events, for one event out of a month? How are players really going to be able to break into this event type? And so they mentioned that there is some design space that they could look into pushing some of the mega or giveaway crew with this feature in mind, so that there might be some opportunity there. But they didn't volunteer any plans at the present to do that. So we may be stuck retrieving tactical Stamets and in Mambo Picard, or Amelia Earhart, who knows. The timing is subject to change. So what we're seeing here is that these encounters are coming very early and very often. I think that I think that's just because of their test version of the game. They are really just looking to actively test only the component that they changed. So I think the cadence that they've set is such that they can just kind of roll from one into the other with a minimum of downtime. So when we finally get to the real in-game scenario, that I think is going to change significantly. So it's a little more realistic on the schedule. Maybe to the tune of, if we have to check in on our shuttles every 3 hours, every hour and a half, maybe that's the cadence that we'll see these checks on. So for a little bit of an update on when we can expect our first Voyage event. So they did say that the first live beta Voyage event is probably going to be somewhere towards the end of July. They're going to be releasing a client update that's going to carry the code for all this somewhere in July. And then one of the midweek events after that is going to be replaced with a little bit of a beta flight of this Voyage event. And then the first formal event, they're scheduling for the end of August. So that actually gives us, before we actually need to compete in a live environment for a weekend event, it gives us as many as 9 weeks to prepare here. So we have a good amount more time than we initially thought, which is nice. And then, we'll see where they go. They still have to do a balance pass. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do there. There's a lot of things about their UI they need to clean up. And there's certainly going to be some flavor and writing that needs to be done for it. So it's going to be a little while until we actually see this. May go out further, but I think they're probably going to keep their schedule. So thanks for sticking with me through this reaction video. I know I've got my work to do on my crew. Fortunately, I got a little bit more time to do it now. Look forward to seeing what all strategies you all devise, and I guess we'll see each other out on the Voyage battlefield in just a few weeks here. So until then, thanks for joining me, and live long and prosper.